I never liked staying home alone, but that winter it couldn't be avoided. My parents were away on an overnight business trip, and I was 17, old enough, they said, to keep the house and our dog, Murphy, safe. It was the kind of January night that makes the world feel hollow. Snow kept falling in slow, endless drifts. Every sound, the furnace rumble, the faint crack of branches, seemed magnified in the stillness. By 9 o'clock, I'd settled into the couch with a blanket and my phone. Murphy lay curled at my feet, snoring softly. I remember thinking it was almost too quiet, the kind of quiet that lets your imagination start building shadows where none exist. That's when I noticed it. A thin beam of light, pale, yellow, wrong, seeping from the attic doorframe at the end of the upstairs hallway. Our attic doesn't have electricity. No bulb, no outlet, nothing. The only light that space ever sees is sunlight filtering through the vent during the day. At night it should be black as a cave. I froze. Maybe a neighbor's porch light, but the attic is sealed tight. No windows, only a single pull-down ladder. Murphy's ears twitched. He raised his head, let out a low whine, and stared toward the stairs. I told myself not to be ridiculous. Drafty houses do strange things. Still, I grabbed my phone and opened the camera app, zooming in on the stairwell. The glow didn't waver. A text from my mom popped up. "Everything good there? Storm's bad here." I almost replied, "Fine," but something in me hesitated. Instead, I pocketed the phone and whispered, "Stay, boy," to Murphy. He didn't move. His eyes followed me as I crept to the bottom of the stairs. Each step groaned louder than I remembered. Halfway up, the air turned colder, sharper, as though the furnace had died. The faint light grew stronger, golden now, pulsing ever so slightly, like a candle flame behind the attic door. I reached the top. The attic hatch hung shut, but the thin line of glow was unmistakable. I stood there, heart hammering, debating whether to pull the cord. A soft scrape came from the other side. Not a mouse, too deliberate. I bolted. Back in the living room, I locked the front door, then all the others. Murphy barked once, deep, alarmed, then pressed against my leg. That's when the house phone rang. We almost never use the landline. Its jarring old-fashioned ring filled every room. I stared at the handset on the wall. 3 rings. 4. I picked up. Nothing. Just a faint crackle, like wind over a microphone. Then a man's voice, low, steady, almost polite. "Don't go back upstairs." Click. The line went dead. I stood there gripping the receiver, trying to slow my breathing. Someone knew where I was. I grabbed my cell and dialed 911. Before the operator finished her greeting, the landline rang again. I hung up on dispatch and spun toward it. 6 rings this time. 7. I didn't answer. When it finally stopped, silence fell heavier than before. The furnace kicked back on, a sudden roar that made me jump. Murphy began to growl, soft, continuous. His gaze fixed on the hallway again. I followed it. The attic light was gone. Relief hit for half a second, until I realized I hadn't heard the hatch open or close. I forced myself to think. If someone was inside, I needed proof, or at least a plan. I set my phone to video and crept up the stairs again, Murphy reluctantly behind me. Halfway up, the smell hit me. Not dust or wood. Something metallic. Blood. I reached the landing and found the attic cord swaying gently, as though someone had just pulled it. No light now, just the black outline of the door. I aimed the camera and whispered, "Hello?" A single knock came from the other side. Slow, hollow. Murphy barked and lunged forward. The hatch creaked. I yanked Murphy back and stumbled down the stairs, heart slamming. We retreated to the kitchen, where I shoved a chair under the back door handle and called 911 again. This time I stayed on the line. The dispatcher assured me officers were en route, but before I could breathe, the attic light flicked on again. The dispatcher's voice buzzed in my ear. "Ma'am, stay on the line. Officers are 3 minutes out. Find a secure room and lock the door." I wanted to tell her I was fine, but the words stuck. Across the hallway, that faint yellow glow bled down the top step again. Slow, pulsing, alive. I grabbed Murphy's collar and backed toward the small laundry room off the kitchen. It had a heavy door and a deadbolt. I slid inside, locking it, the phone still pressed to my ear. "Can you describe the intruder?" the dispatcher asked. "There's no one," I whispered. "Just a light in the attic." Silence. Then, faint through the receiver, a new sound, a soft, rhythmic tap, 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 not from my end, from hers. My chest tightened. "Do you hear that?" I asked. She didn't answer, only the tapping in perfect sync with my racing heart. Murphy growled, low and steady. His eyes tracked the crack beneath the door. Then came a new noise, floorboards sighing directly outside the laundry room. Slow, measured steps, each one deliberate. I pressed the phone harder to my ear. "Someone's in the house," I hissed. The dispatcher finally spoke, but her voice was different, deeper, slower. "Stay very still." Every hair on my arms lifted. That voice wasn't the same woman. I dropped the handset. It hit the tile with a hollow clatter. The line stayed open, but what came through wasn't speech, just breathing, long, patient. Murphy barked, lunging at the door. The knob turned. The deadbolt held. I scrambled backward, dragging a metal laundry rack to wedge against the handle. My mind ran wild. Whoever it was had gotten past locked doors and windows without a sound. The footsteps retreated. Boards groaned softly as weight shifted away, back toward the stairs. Then, the attic light flicked off. Total darkness. For a full minute, nothing but Murphy's panting and my own heartbeat. A sudden thud upstairs made him bark again. Then silence. Blue and red strobes finally flashed across the snow outside. Car doors slammed. Voices called out. I yanked the laundry door open to a flood of flashlight beams. 2 deputies entered, weapons drawn. Relief nearly knocked me to the floor. They swept the entire house. Basement, bedrooms, attic ladder, nothing. No footprints in the fresh snow around the house. The attic hatch was still latched tight from the outside. And yet, when one deputy climbed up to check, he stopped halfway. You'll want to see this," he called down. I followed, heart pounding. In the center of the dusty attic floor sat a single object, our cordless landline phone, the same model as the one in the kitchen, but dead, battery removed. Someone had set it upright, receiver off the hook, as if waiting. The deputy picked it up carefully. "Did you bring this here?" I shook my head. "That's impossible. That phone hasn't worked in years. We left it in the garage." Murphy whined, tail tucked. The officers exchanged a look I couldn't read. One said, almost to himself, "No prints." They left after another hour of searching, and a lot of gentle suggestions, faulty wiring, maybe a prank call routed weirdly. But I saw the way they kept glancing toward the ceiling. That night, I slept in my parents' room with every light on. We replaced the landline the next morning and added new locks, cameras, motion lights, everything. 2 weeks later, a package arrived on our porch. No return address. Inside was a single item, a cordless handset identical to the attic phone. Battery missing, no note. Just a faint smell of cold metal. For a few weeks after the attic incident, life slipped back toward normal, or at least a version of it. The new locks clicked every night. The motion lights swept the driveway like search beams. But some part of me never unclenched. Then the noises started. It began with a faint scraping overhead, always around 3 a.m., a dry drag across the ceiling, as though someone in socks was pacing from one end of the attic to the other. Murphy would snap awake, head cocked, a low growl rising in his throat. I'd grab the baseball bat I kept beside the bed and listen. By the time I dared a look, the sound would stop. My parents dismissed it. Squirrels, they said, or the old rafters settling. But squirrels don't pause when you shout and wood doesn't breathe. One night I decided to catch it on camera. I set my phone to record and placed it on my nightstand, lens aimed at the ceiling. At 2:57 a.m., the sound came. Slow, deliberate steps, heavier than before. I lay frozen, counting each one. In the morning, I scrolled through the footage. The audio was there, creaks and a faint rhythmic tap. 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 But the video? Pitch black until the final seconds when a dim yellow flare, like a candle flame, blinked across the frame and vanished. I showed my parents. They suggested an electrician. I called the police. The same 2 deputies returned, patient but skeptical. They climbed into the attic again and found nothing. One of them, the younger one, crouched beside me on the landing and said quietly, "Locks don't matter if someone already lives inside." The next night I slept in the living room with Murphy. Around midnight, the landline, our brand new replacement, rang once. Just once. No caller ID, no record in the log. I unplugged it and tried to convince myself it was a glitch. Then, from the dark hallway came a whisper, "Don't go back upstairs." Clear. Close. A man's voice. Murphy exploded in a frenzy of barking. I grabbed my phone and hit record, heart slamming. The whisper didn't return, but a shadow crossed the far wall, tall, narrow, almost human, though no lights were on behind it. The next morning, the attic cord hung halfway down the ladder. I hadn't touched it. By now my parents were scared enough to act. They arranged for a full inspection, pest control, HVAC, a contractor to check insulation. The contractor, a broad-shouldered guy named Luis, was the first to admit something was off. "There's a gap," he said, pointing to a corner where the attic met the crawl space above the garage. "Leads into the wall cavities. You could move through a lot of the house from there." The crawl space reeked of cold metal, the same scent from the night of the call. Luis set a motion camera inside and sealed the opening with new plywood. That night, I slept easier. For exactly 2 nights. On the 3rd, the camera notification woke me at 2:41 a.m. Motion detected. I opened the live feed. At first, I saw only dust motes drifting through the beam of the infrared light. Then, from the darkness at the far edge, a shape leaned slowly into frame. A man. Skin chalk white under the IR glow, eyes reflecting like a cat's. He smiled, wide, teeth gleaming, and raised a single finger to his lips. The feed cut to static. I called 911 before the phone even slipped from my hand. The operator promised units were on the way. From upstairs came a crash, wood splintering, heavy footsteps pounding. Not the attic this time, inside the walls. When the deputies arrived, the sounds had stopped. But the crawl space panel Luis had sealed was ripped open from the inside. Snow led away from the garage in a trail of bare human footprints. They never found him. The police stayed until sunrise, combing the yard and tree line with dogs and high-powered flashlights. Nothing. No tire marks, no discarded clothes. Just those barefoot prints that ended abruptly at the frozen creek. They offered a patrol car to watch the house for a few nights and advised us to stay elsewhere. My parents booked a room at the Hampton Inn across town, but I couldn't shake the feeling that leaving would be worse. That whoever he was, he wanted us to run. We stayed. The first 2 nights passed in tense silence. Then, on the 3rd night, the smell returned. That sharp, metallic tang. I woke to Murphy whining at the bedroom door, his hackles raised. A soft creak followed, a floorboard bending under weight. Not above, below. I grabbed the bat and phone, texting the deputies on speed dial. Before I could hit send, the house phone rang once. Just once, like before. Murphy barked. Another creak, closer this time, from the kitchen. I eased the door open, heart hammering. The hallway light flickered. Not a power surge, more like someone brushing the switch with their hand. From the darkness came a single word, hissed and deliberate. "Down!" I lunged back into the room and slammed the door. Murphy barked until the frame rattled. Through the thin wood I heard footsteps, slow and heavy, moving away toward the basement stairs. Then the basement door shut with a click. Police arrived within 5 minutes. They stormed through every room, weapons drawn. The basement door stood wide open when they reached it. Inside, the smell of metal was overwhelming. Near the center of the concrete floor, they found a small pile of items. The battery from our old cordless phone. A single black and white Polaroid of me sleeping in my bed, Murphy curled beside me. A note scrawled in thick pencil, "You heard me." No fingerprints, no sign of forced entry. The crawl space panel was untouched, but a section of insulation near the foundation had been peeled away to reveal a narrow tunnel leading toward the woods. For weeks, the deputies canvassed the area. No suspects, no matching prints. The trail simply disappeared. We sold the house that spring. The new owners gutted the attic and sealed the crawl spaces. But 2 months after we moved, the woman who bought the place called my mother in a panic. She'd been woken at 3 a.m. by a faint yellow glow seeping from the attic door. When she went to investigate, she found the pull cord swaying, and on the floor beneath it, another Polaroid. This one showed a man's hand pressed flat against her bedroom window from the upstairs. I've never gone back, but sometimes, on cold nights when the air smells of snow and metal, I'll wake to a single ring from an unknown number. When I answer, there's only breathing. Long, patient. And then a quiet voice, almost a whisper. "Don't go back upstairs." I never used to be afraid of mirrors. They were just another piece of furniture, background objects that I barely noticed unless I was brushing my hair or checking my clothes before heading out. But the one in my bedroom wasn't like that. It wasn't supposed to be creepy. It was just this tall, full-body mirror with a thin black frame, something my mom bought at a thrift store when we moved into the house. I liked it at first because it made my small bedroom look bigger, but then I noticed something. The first time it happened, I was standing in front of it late at night scrolling on my phone. My reflection looked normal, except it blinked half a second after I did. Not much, but just enough to make my stomach drop. I laughed it off. Maybe I was tired. Maybe my eyes were just adjusting weirdly to the glow of the phone screen. But from that night on, I couldn't look at that mirror without paying attention, watching, waiting. And the more I watched, the worse it got. A few nights later, I was brushing my teeth in front of it when I swore I saw something shift in the background of the reflection. My room looked the same, except in the mirror, the closet door was slightly open. I whipped around. The closet was shut tight. When I turned back to the mirror, it was shut there too. I didn't sleep much that night. The next day, I told myself I was imagining things. I even Googled delayed reflections and mirror hallucinations. A few articles said the brain can glitch under low light, tricking us into seeing movement. That comforted me for a little while, until the night I saw her. I was lying in bed, scrolling TikTok, when something in the mirror caught my eye. At first I thought it was just me shifting under the blankets. But no, the reflection wasn't moving like I was. I sat up slowly. My reflection was still lying down. And standing in the corner of the reflected room, right next to my closet, was a figure, a woman. She looked pale, long hair hanging over her face. I whipped my head toward the closet. Nothing, just shadows. My heart hammered so hard I could barely breathe. When I looked back at the mirror, she was gone. My reflection was normal again. I didn't sleep that night either. By the next morning, I had convinced myself it was sleep deprivation, or maybe my eyes playing tricks. But deep down, I knew something was off. And then came the night she moved. It was around 2 a.m. when I woke up thirsty. I rolled over in bed and caught sight of the mirror. My reflection was sitting upright, staring at me. I froze. Very slowly, the reflection smiled. Not a tired smile, not the kind you make to reassure yourself you're okay. It was wide, too wide. The corners of its mouth stretched higher than they should have, like its face was tearing open. I screamed and threw my blanket over the mirror. My mom came running in, half asleep and pissed off, but when I tried to explain, she brushed it off. "Nightmares," she said. "You watch too much scary stuff before bed." But it wasn't a nightmare. The blanket stayed on for 2 days, but eventually I pulled it off. I had to know, and the mirror was waiting. At this point, I needed proof. If I was losing my mind, I wanted something to ground me. So I set up my phone on a chair, facing the mirror, and hit record. Then I sat on my bed, scrolling through Instagram, pretending not to watch. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. My reflection moved when I did, scratched its head when I did, scrolled when I did. I started feeling stupid. Then, as I got up to stop the recording, I caught it. My reflection stood up a second after I did. It tilted its head and waved at me. I swear to God, I have the video, but when I played it back later that night, the reflection was normal, perfectly synced, no wave, no delay. It was like the mirror was gaslighting me. From then on, things got worse, much worse. Sometimes the reflection wasn't me at all. I'd walk past and see a stranger in my place, the pale woman with the long hair standing silently. Other times I'd catch my reflection looking over my shoulder, like something was right behind me. One night, I woke up to the sound of whispering. At first, I thought it was coming from outside, maybe the neighbors, but it was soft, right there in my room. It was coming from the mirror. I pressed my ear against the glass. The voice was faint, like it was underwater, but I swear I heard the words, "Let me out." I stumbled back so fast I hit my nightstand. My lamp crashed to the floor, and the room went dark except for the moonlight in the mirror. And in that glow, I saw her again. The woman. Only this time, she wasn't standing in the corner. She was right behind my reflection. Her hand rested on its shoulder. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the mirror the next morning, dragged it out of my room, and shoved it into the garage. My mom thought I was being dramatic, but didn't stop me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. That night, I slept deeply. No whispers, no figures, no delays. But peace doesn't last. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to a sound from the garage. A faint, steady tapping. Tap, 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 like fingernails on glass. I tried to ignore it, pulling the blanket over my head, but the sound got louder, faster, until it was pounding, like someone slamming their fists against the mirror. Then I heard the whisper again. "You can't hide forever." The next morning, I told my mom everything. She stared at me for a long time before finally saying, "That mirror belonged to the woman who used to live here." I froze. "What woman?" She hesitated. "The neighbor told me she died in this house years ago. Nobody wanted the mirror, so I thought..." I didn't let her finish. That night I tried to sleep with my door locked and my curtains shut. But something woke me at exactly 3:17 a.m. At first, I thought it was just a dream. But when I opened my eyes, my blood ran cold. The mirror was back in my room. Not the frame, not the glass, just the reflection, floating there against the wall, like a doorway to another version of my room. And in that reflection, I wasn't alone. The pale woman was standing over my sleeping body. Couldn't move. My body felt heavy, pinned to the mattress as my eyes locked on that impossible reflection. My reflection was asleep, just like me, but in the mirrored version of my room, she wasn't alone. The pale woman hovered over my sleeping double, her long hair draping forward as though she was studying my face. I wanted to scream, I wanted to run, but I couldn't do anything but stare, and then the reflection of me opened its eyes. Not in my world, in the mirror's. She looked directly at me, like she knew I was watching. Slowly, she smiled, that same too-wide grin I'd seen before. The woman behind her leaned closer to my reflection's ear. I swear I heard her whisper, "Switch." The air in my room grew heavy, like pressure before a storm. My ears popped. I scrambled upright, finally able to move, but the reflection didn't copy me this time. Instead, it stayed in bed, watching me with that horrible grin. The mirror rippled like the surface of water, and then I felt it, a tugging in my chest, pulling me toward it. No, no, no. I stumbled back, clawing at the bed frame, but the force was strong. My posters flapped on the walls as if from a wind only I could feel. The mirror world was dragging me in. I screamed for my mom. No answer. The house was silent. As my finger slipped, my reflection reached out of the glass. Its hand pressed against mine, cold as ice, and started pulling. I don't remember how long I fought. I don't remember when I blacked out. All I know is that when I woke up, the room was different. Very different. At first I thought I was still in my bedroom. Same bed, same posters, same desk. But everything was wrong. The colors were muted, washed out, like I was inside an old photograph. The air was freezing, each breath fogging in front of me. And the mirror, my mirror, was gone. In its place was a bare wall. My stomach dropped. I was in the other room, the mirrored room. I backed toward the door, heart hammering, and yanked it open, only to find another version of the hallway. The walls stretched farther than they should have, darker, endless. Behind me, a floorboard creaked. I spun around. She was there, the pale woman. Up close, she wasn't just pale. She looked rotted. Skin gray and peeling, hair matted like it hadn't been washed in years. Her eyes were pits of black, no whites, no pupils. She took one step toward me, and the floor groaned under her weight. "Stay away," I croaked, but my voice sounded thin, swallowed by the walls. She tilted her head and smiled. I ran. I don't even remember choosing a direction. I just bolted into the endless hallway, doors flying past me on both sides. Every door I yanked open led to more wrong rooms, distorted versions of places I knew. My kitchen, but with knives stuck blade first into the ceiling. My living room, but the TV showed static filled with screaming faces. And always, I heard her footsteps behind me. Slow, heavy, patient. No matter how fast I ran, they never faded. Finally, I burst into a room that made me freeze. It was my bedroom, but not the one I'd left. This one looked like it had been abandoned for decades. The wallpaper was peeling. Mold crawled up the walls. My bed was just a rusted frame, and against the far wall was a mirror. The mirror. I stumbled toward it, hope flaring in my chest. The glass shimmered faintly, like it was alive. And in it, I saw my real bedroom, bright, normal, untouched. I banged on it with both hands. "Help! Somebody help me!" But instead of my reflection, I saw her, the other me. She was sitting on my real bed, brushing her hair casually, like she'd lived there forever. When she saw me, she smiled. "Stay there," she mouthed. Then she leaned forward and shut the curtains on her side, covering the mirror completely. The pale woman's footsteps grew louder behind me. I pressed myself against the glass, sobbing, but it stayed solid. Then the whispers began again. Dozens of voices this time, slithering from the walls, the ceiling, the floor. "You shouldn't have looked. You let her in. You are hers now." I turned, and she was there, inches away. Her breath stank of rot. What do you want from me?" I stammered. She smiled wider, and when she spoke, her voice was layered, like 100 people speaking through one mouth. "I don't want you. I want out." And with that she lunged. I don't remember the impact, just the cold, like falling into ice water. My vision went black, my ears filled with static, and when I came to, I was lying in my bed. For a moment I thought it was over, that I'd dreamed the whole thing. But then I noticed something. My mirror was gone, not broken, not covered, gone. Just bare wall where it used to be. I rushed to my mom's room to tell her, but she wasn't there. The whole house was empty, and when I checked my phone, the date was wrong. 17 years had passed. I live in this house alone now. Nobody remembers me. My mom, my friends, they're all gone. To them, I disappeared as a teenager years ago, but the mirror hasn't let me go. Every night at 3:17 a.m., I hear the tapping again. Soft at first, then louder. I know what it is. It's her. The version of me that took my place. And sometimes when I walk past the bare wall, I swear I see her. just for a second. She's standing there on the other side, living my life, smiling at me, waiting for me to try and get back in. But I won't, because deep down I know the truth. She isn't my reflection anymore, I'm hers. I grew up in a house that was too big for us. My parents bought it cheap, and I always wondered why. It had that empty feeling, like no matter how much furniture you moved in, it was never really full. From the very first night, I noticed something strange. Lying in bed, I'd hear footsteps above me. Slow, dragging ones. At first, I thought it was just the house settling. But as weeks went on, it became impossible to ignore. The steps were too clear, too deliberate. The problem? According to my dad, our house didn't have an attic. It started on a school night. I was lying in bed around midnight, half asleep, when I heard the first creak, then another, then steady pacing, directly above my room. I sat up, heart racing, and stared at the ceiling. The sound paused, then continued, as though whoever, or whatever it was, didn't care that I'd noticed. The next morning, I asked my dad about it over breakfast. He frowned. "We don't have an attic, just insulation up there." "Then why does it sound like someone's walking around?" I asked. He gave me that look dads give when they think you're being dramatic. "Old houses make noise. Don't let your imagination run wild." But the noises kept coming, and I knew I wasn't imagining them. A few nights later, I woke up around 3 a.m. to a new sound. Not footsteps this time. Scratches. Long, slow, deliberate scratches, like nails dragging across wood. I lay frozen under my blanket, staring at the ceiling, counting each scrape. By the 10th one, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, shining it around the room. That's when I saw the dust falling. Tiny specks of plaster drifting down from the ceiling. Something was up there. The next morning, I checked the ceiling in daylight. Sure enough, right above my bed was a faint circular outline, like a hatch that had been painted over. My dad was wrong. We did have an attic. The footsteps got bolder after that, louder, faster, like whoever was up there knew I'd discovered them. Sometimes I'd hear tapping directly over my bed. 1, 2, 3. Pause. 1, 2, 3, like a code. Other nights, I'd hear things dragging. Furniture, maybe? Boxes? I tried telling my mom, but she brushed it off too. "Your dad already told you. It's just the house. Don't spook yourself." So I stopped asking, but I started listening, really listening. And I realized something chilling. The noises only happened when I was home alone. One Saturday, my parents went out for the evening, leaving me to babysit myself. I tried to distract with video games, but around 9 p.m., the footsteps started. Instead of hiding under my blanket like usual, I grabbed a chair and climbed up to inspect the ceiling hatch. My hands shook as I ran my fingers around the outline. It definitely wasn't just plaster. It had seams, faint but real. I tapped it lightly. The footsteps stopped. The silence was worse than the noise. Then, from directly above me, something tapped back. Once, twice, 3 times. That night I barely slept. But by morning, curiosity was eating me alive. While my parents were busy, I grabbed a flashlight and a broom and poked at the hatch until a corner of the plaster cracked. Dust rained down. I coughed, wiping my eyes, and shone the flashlight up. There was definitely space up there. I dragged the ladder from the garage and set it up under the hatch. My heart was pounding as I pushed the panel up and peeked inside. It was dark, stifling, cobwebs everywhere. But as my eyes adjusted, I froze. There were objects up there. A mattress, a blanket, empty food wrappers. Someone had been living in our attic. I crawled inside, gagging at the smell. The mattress was stained and filthy. Crushed soda cans littered the floor. But that wasn't the worst part. Scattered across the floor were Polaroid photographs. Dozens of them. I picked one up with shaking hands. It was me, asleep in my bed, I dropped it and picked up another. Me, brushing my teeth in the bathroom. Another, me eating dinner at the table. My blood turned to ice. Every single photo was of me, and the most recent one made my stomach lurch. It was dated that morning, and it showed me, standing on the ladder, climbing into the attic. I don't know how long I sat there, heart hammering, trying not to throw up. The air felt too thick to breathe. Then I heard it, the sound of breathing, not mine, slow, heavy, coming from the far corner of the attic. I lifted my flashlight with trembling hands. The beam landed on a shape crouched in the shadows. A man. His face was gaunt, eyes sunken and wild. He grinned when the light hit him. "Finally!" he rasped. My whole body froze. The man crouched in the corner didn't move. He just watched me with that awful grin, like he'd been waiting for this moment all along. His skin was pale, almost gray, his clothes filthy and torn. His hair hung in greasy clumps, and when he spoke again, his voice was cracked and hoarse. "You finally looked up here," I stumbled back, kicking over cans, my flashlight beam shaking wildly. "Who are you?" My voice cracked. "What are you doing in my house?" He tilted his head like the question amused him. "Your house?" He laughed quietly, a dry, rattling sound. "No, this house is mine." I didn't wait to hear more. I bolted for the hatch, scrambling down the ladder so fast I nearly broke my ankle. My flashlight clattered to the floor. Behind me I heard him moving, crawling. His knees and hands scraped against the wood as he scuttled toward the opening. I slammed the hatch shut just as his hand darted out. His nails scratched across my arm, drawing blood. I screamed, shoving the ladder away, and stumbled back into my room. The thumping started immediately. Heavy fists pounding the hatch from the other side, again and again. Then it stopped, and the silence was worse. I locked myself in the bathroom and pressed a towel against the scratches on my arm, shaking so hard I could barely stand. I thought about calling my parents, but what could I even say? "Hey, there's a man living in our attic, and he has a collection of photos of me sleeping." No, they'd think I was losing it. Instead, I sat there for hours, waiting for them to come home. When I finally heard the front door open and my mom's voice, I nearly cried with relief. But when I stepped out of the bathroom, I froze. On my bed was another Polaroid. This one showed me, sitting in the bathroom, holding a towel to my arm. The photo had been taken just minutes earlier. That night I told my parents everything. I showed them the hatch, the mattress, the wrappers, the Polaroids. But when my dad climbed the ladder with a flashlight, the attic was empty. No mattress, no wrappers, no photos, just dust and cobwebs. I swore it was there. I knew it was there. But the proof was gone. My parents exchanged worried looks. My mom even suggested therapy. But I wasn't crazy. I knew what I'd seen, and the man knew I'd seen him. For a few weeks, nothing happened. No footsteps, no scratches, just silence. But silence can be worse than noise, because it makes you wait. It makes you wonder when it'll start again. And eventually, it did. One night, I woke to a soft tapping at my window. I pulled back the curtain, heart in my throat. There, stuck to the glass with a piece of tape, was a Polaroid. It showed me asleep in my bed. I whipped around. My bed was empty. The photo was taken that night. I didn't think. I just ran. Out of my room, down the stairs, fumbling with the lock on the front door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely twist it open. Behind me, I heard the creak of the hatch sliding open, the sound of someone climbing down the ladder. I threw the door open and sprinted into the night, barefoot, not even caring where I was going. The cool air cut my lungs, gravel slicing my feet. I didn't stop until I reached the streetlight at the end of the block. When I turned back, I saw him, the man from the attic. He was standing in my bedroom window, watching me and smiling. The police searched the house the next day. They found nothing, no man, no photos, no sign anyone had ever been up there. But the hatch was open. The officers sealed it shut, told us it was just a structural quirk, and left. My parents wanted to believe them, but I couldn't, because that night, as I tried to sleep in the living room, I heard it again. The footsteps, right above me. It's been months since then. My parents think I'm paranoid, but I know the truth. He's still up there. I hear him every night, crawling, pacing, whispering my name. Sometimes I find new Polaroids tucked under my pillow. The most recent one was the worst. It showed me sitting here at my desk writing this, which means he's watching me, right now. And if you ever hear footsteps above your room, don't look up, because once you do, he knows you can see him, and then he won't hide anymore.